So in the end here, on top of all of this infighting, the biggest problem for the Democrats isn't their internal civil war. I mean, that's big enough, no question. But the biggest problem for the Democrats of all, and this is why I think whenever they say, oh, our messaging isn't working, our messaging is, I think this is what it's reflective of. The biggest problem for the Democrats, bottom line, is no one likes them anymore. It's literally that simple. No one likes him anymore. I mean, the leftist pundit Ray Takara made this very point in his latest Substack piece, The Democrats Fork in the Road. The Democrats, to the extent that they stopped shooting at each other, the Democrats are operating, and again, this is a leftist making this observation. The Democrats are operating on the assumption that they can get voters to believe that the solution to Trump, the solution for those who were disappointed with Trump, again, as if all these fake polls were true, which we demonstrated with Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen. They are all absolutely fake. If you haven't seen that, it was a video earlier this week. You'll love it. Check that out. But even if we were to grant the legitimacy of all that fake polling, take out the fact that it's fake, even if we were to grant that, Trump is in the low 40s or high 30s, the Democrats are operating with the assumption that they can convince voters that the solution to Trump is restoring the Democrats back to power. And what Takara is saying here is that that is completely deaf to what voters are overwhelmingly saying. And we're talking 60, 70, 80%. Trump's polls may be down, but they are nowhere near as down as the Democrats' own polling. If Trump's polls are bad, the Democrats' polls are apocalyptic. This is so key. Again, I was talking about this with Mark Mitchell earlier this week. Even if we were to grant the legitimacy of these fake polls, where Trump is polling again low 40s, high 30s, whatever, that polling is not in a vacuum. The Democrats, if they ever take a look at their own polling, the Democrats would beg to have Trump's polling. They're finding themselves in the best light, low 30s, in what's probably the more accurate light, mid-20s, or the Quinnipiac that had them down at 21%. There's not too much farther to go there when 8 out of 10 voters just despise you. If voters are disappointed with Trump, they are disgusted with the Democrats. Polls are not in a vacuum. I mean, what the Democrats did under Biden for the last 4 years for many is just unforgivable. Whether it was covering up his acuity or whether it was just the economy, the cost of living crisis, the interest rates, the inflation, the deliberate abdication of their law enforcement responsibilities, the COVID restrictions, the southern border, the chaos of crime, and perhaps most significantly, their absolute crazy, zealous doubling down on woke insanity. And yet Democrats are absolutely oblivious to this. Again, this is Takara's take. The Democrats are running around acting like they're convincing more and more voters that the solution to their dissatisfaction with Trump is simply putting Democrats back into power. The problem with that assumption is that it is doing absolutely nothing to win back working class voters, both white and non-white voters who have defected over to Trump, particularly the Trumpian Republican Party. And this is because those voters, who, by the way, are the biggest supporters of tariffs, they don't want to go back to the Democrat status quo. They don't want to return to the 4 years of Biden. I know the ladies at The View want to. I know single women with cats living in Manhattan want to, but nobody else does, literally. You see, there's been a major vibe shift with Trump. And this is what the Democrats don't understand. This is why I think running with a 2016 playbook against Trump is doomed to colossal failure. There has been a major vibe shift with Trump. And I think this is absolutely key to get to understand what's really happening here, big picture all over the place. And this closes the loop of where we began our talk today. A number of pundits are starting to write about this vibe shift. Bottom line, what's happening here is that Trump has gone from being seen, like he was in his first term, as a sad final act of an old, dying, white-dominated world to now, in his second term, the incarnation of the future. You got to get that, because I think it explains so much. In many respects, this explains everything that's happening now in our politics. The vibe has shifted. We've gone from a wide consensus among our elites that Trump 1.0 was a last desperate attempt by a dying generation of white men, a dying demographic, old white men. This is their last desperate attempt to try to stave off the inevitable. This glowing, progressive, multicultural future, highly liberal, highly woke. We've gone from that perception that Trump was a desperate attempt by a dying generation to stay in power to now a wide consensus among that very same elite that Trump 2.0 is the wave of the future. Now, we were saying that back then. That's Turley Talks. If you're still with us, God bless you. If you've been with us for all those years, God bless you. If not, make sure you smack that bell and subscribe button, because we have been saying this now for 8 years. But first, gang, President Trump just signed an executive order outlining his plans to create America's first national sovereign wealth fund. And it will need to be filled up with assets and fast. Trump wants a go-live plan in the next 90 days. The Wall Street types are already focused on packing it with real estate, infrastructure, and pieces of trendy companies like TikTok. But let's not forget about gold. Sovereign wealth funds love to buy gold in bulk. Australia's been loading up. Saudi Arabia is buying the world's largest gold mine to supply itself. And even tiny Singapore recently added more than 100 metric tons of gold to its vaults. Can you imagine what could happen to the per ounce price of gold, which has already been surging sky high since Trump took office? I mean, if America's new sovereign wealth fund followed international best practices and made gold a part of its diversified portfolio, can you imagine? I mean, it would potentially make our country a brand new mega buyer in an already tight market. And when there's limited supply and huge demand, well, the impact on prices, let's just say you want to be ready. There's a simple way to get in on the action. It's all laid out for you in the free gold report from my partners at TurleyTalksLikesGold.com. You'll want to request your copy right away. After all, President Trump has put the world on notice. A new sovereign wealth fund for America may be coming perhaps in as little as the next 90 days. Take advantage of the time you've got to prepare. Get your free gold report now at TurleyTalksLikesGold.com. Trump is the future. Civilizational populism is the future. It is only going to grow. It is only going to spread. Look at the latest polls coming out of the UK. Nigel Farage, love him or hate him, Nigel Farage has been on the cusp of history now, not just once, but now twice. It looks like they are going to explode into Parliament as the number one party. And for the first time in literally, centuries, we're going to see a third party beat out both Tories and Labour. Stunning. But that's the future of nationalist populism. It's happening everywhere. There's no such happening in Romania right now as we speak. So we've been talking about this vibe shift for 8 years. And the media is just catching up with us. And the key here, of course, is the glaring discrepancy between the young vote and the older vote, the boomer vote, which has completely overturned that conventional that old conventional wisdom that Trump is part of a dying world. And we've talked a lot about this on a number of occasions. One of the most popular political theories came out. It came out in, I believe, 2017, 2018. It was a very popular theory among liberal scholars, and it was called the cultural backlash thesis. And it argued that the only reason why Trump and nationalist populists like him were winning around the world is because they were the last hurrah of an old dying white male order. Old dying white men hate this new world of identity politics, multiculturalism, progressive woke that's inevitably rising up around them because young people are so woke and progressive. And so these old white men are voting for the most extreme radical right candidates to try to push back against the inevitable sea change that's going to happen demographically. And the key to this thesis is that if you want to know what the political future was going to be like, why this was only temporary, just look at the youth vote. Look at how the youngest voters are voting, and then you will see the harbinger of our political future. And given that the youth vote up until that point was overwhelmingly liberal, these left-wing scholars predicted that the days of Trump and the Republicans and the populists in Europe were inevitably going to wane. And how'd that work out for them? And it worked out for them that way precisely because it's the exact opposite. With the mass defection of the youth vote, it now appears that it is the demise of the Democrats that it's inevitable. It's their voters who are significantly older. All the younger voters are turning more and more and more to the populist right, just like we predicted they would. I have long been arguing Gen Z is the most conservative generation we have on record since World War II. I was laughed at when I was making that argument back in 2018 or 2019. I was mocked. I remember reading some of the comments. I was routinely mocked that Gen Z, purple hair Gen Z, was somehow more traditionalist, more conservative, more nationalist than any other 18-year-old cohort that we've tested since World War II. You know, it's hard. I'm telling you, it's a curse. It's a curse being clairvoyant. What are we seeing? It's the Democrats voters who are now inordinately 60 plus in age. The lowest poll numbers that Trump gets, 60 plus. The highest poll numbers, 30 minus. 60%, Mark Mitchell was just talking about. I think it was 39 and below, highest poll numbers. It's the Democrats voters who are dying off, all as younger voters turn more and more to the populist right. That's the vibe shift. Rich Barris of the People's Pundit, he's the single most accurate pollster from 2024, as was Mark Mitchell. He said it this way, quote, ages 44 and below are consistently Trump's strongest group, especially those between the ages of 18 and 29. It's just weird how everything has turned upside down in our politics. That's the vibe shift. That's the inversion we're seeing in our politics today. Trump has gone from being an incarnation of the past to now a symbol of the future. And the irony here is that if we apply the cultural backlash thesis to the Democrats, if we apply this thesis to the Democrats, then this generational shift is indeed the death knell for them. That was the whole point of the thesis. Hey, guys, relax. This populism is temporary. It's all just a bunch of old white men. They're all going to die out soon, and then we're going to get to have our wonderful, woke, multicultural, progressive future. Because that's how young people are voting. And now it's the exact opposite. So, if we apply the cultural backlash thesis, the only backlash here is the backlash among a dying generation of diehard status quoists, liberal internationalists, Democrats. It spells the end for the future of their party. And if that's the case, then unless something drastically changes, it does appear that this civil war that's erupting in the Democratic Party is the least of their worries. If nothing changes, and if demographics is destiny, Democrats are poised to go the way of the Whigs, the way of the dodo bird. They are indeed on the primrose path to political extinction. Hey there, Turley Talker. You know what? I'd love to hear from you. That's why I'm launching the Dr. Steve Hotline, where you can call in, leave a question, and maybe even hear your own voice featured on an upcoming episode of the show. Whether it's about the latest political shakeup or cultural trends or how we keep pushing forward in this new conservative age, I want to know what's on your mind. Call me at 717-844-5984. Just leave your question. I'll be checking in every single week to answer as many as I can. Again, that's 717-844-5984. Your chance to be a part of the conversation. One more time, 717-844-5984. Give me a call and let's talk.